welcome today to Counselor Chats Happily Ever After. I thank you all for joining us today. We've been speaking the past few months, few weeks about dating in today's digital world, and I'm thrilled that you were all able to put time aside to join us today and bring your very unique perspectives to what I'm sure will be a very impactful conversation. Quick little intros for everyone. Jessica Asia. She's one of our counselors. She's a licensed clinical social worker based in New York with over a decade of experience in psychotherapy. Her practice focuses on helping individuals navigate the complexities of dating, improve their relationships, and deepen their understanding of attachment styles. By providing education and guidance, she empowers clients to transition toward more secure attachment patterns, fostering healthier connections and personal growth. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you. Hi, everybody.
We also have Jeannie Zomstein, who started Gen Z Mentality and 100 Singles during college with the goal of amplifying Gen Z voices and exploring modern dating challenges. Her passion for understanding Gen Z daters began while interning at Hinge on the research team, where she gained valuable insights into improving the online dating experience for Gen Z. Since then, she has interviewed hundreds of Gen Z daters through her series, fostering transparent conversations about the realities of modern dating. She has also facilitated in-person connections through singles events, offering authentic dating experiences. Her mission is to support Gen Z in navigating the digital dating landscape and making the experience a little more authentic and a lot more fun. Hi, Jeannie.
Thank you.
We also have Joe Feminella, who is the founder of First Rounds on Me dating app. Joe and I first started speaking about his app in that it's so different than other dating apps that I've seen on the market today. It facilitates in real life meetups and connections. And I'm sure as this conversation progresses, Joe will be able to fill us in as to what differentiates the dating apps today and help us navigate what is an extremely challenging but ever-evolving experience in dating today. Hello, Joe. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Hi, everybody. Excited for this.
And last but certainly not least, we have April Kirkwood. Some of you may recognize her from as a TV personality. She was recently on the inaugural season of Golden Bachelor, which has taken the nation by storm. And I'm sure she has a lot of experiences from that and in her life as a professional mental health provider in dealing with people and a life coach, holistic life coach. April, we're so looking forward to your perspectives and your unique experiences.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here and give you a golden kind of flow of what's happening out there on our end.
Thank you for being here today. And of course, our fabulous moderator, Michael Goldberg, who is an author, professor, counselor, board member, former healthcare leader, and just an extraordinaire of all things. Michael, I'm going to turn over this fabulous panel to you for what I know will be a very impactful, powerful conversation. And again, just thank you so much to all of you for your time today.
Thank you, Kristen. And welcome to all the panelists. This is going to be an exciting conversation, the next installment of our series, Counselor Chats Happily Ever After. One of the things that I think a lot about when we think about happily ever after is, you know, this idea, we all grow up on these movies of these incredible love stories that end with this, you know, probably romantic kiss at the end, and, you know, people get together and, you know, you never see what happens afterwards. But what stands out to me are a couple of key statistics as we talk about relationships today. One being, growing up, I remember a statistic, and it's still true to this day, with the number of families that end in a divorce, marriages that end in a divorce. And in addition to that, I did pull some statistics that I wanted to share with everybody and then start to frame the conversation and understand how does this not only impact the statistics I'm going to read about, but how does it impact people's mental health and ultimately whether or not they have the ability to be happy and to thrive in life. And I think all of you here today have dedicated your lives to helping people do just that. And we're excited to have the conversation. So it probably won't surprise the four of you, but maybe some of our listeners to know that since 1990, there has been a 14% increase in the number of people who are unpartnered. And so those are people who are living either single or cohabitating but not being married. And here are some deeper level statistics for what it means for people who are not in thriving relationships. 11% are less likely to have bachelor's degrees. 7% are less likely to be employed. There's a almost 30% difference in the expected income that the unpartnered person would earn. So a $14,000 lower salary on an annual basis, with the average partnered being about 49,000 and unpartnered being about 35,000. 11% more financial vulnerability for being unpartnered. 26% of unpartnered people live with their parents, and 2% do not. I'm sorry, 2% live with their parents even if they're married. And so when you think about the impact of these statistics on society in total and compare that with people's happiness, it's an interesting conversation to take place, while at the same time recognizing that the way we meet each other is changing drastically, especially over the last 10 years or so. And some of you are in that space, and we're going to talk about it. But if you think about the top 3 ways that people used to meet each other were through their friends being number 1, at a bar or a restaurant being number 2, and then through neighbors and religious affiliation groups was number 3. Now what we're seeing is friends are still number 1, and I don't know if that counts liking someone's Facebook post that you're friends mutually with, but online is showing up as number 2, and obviously online didn't exist 15 years ago. And so the groups of people that are introducing us individually and personally is starting to fall a little bit lower, right? The people that we know, we trust, think will be a good match with somebody. But what's replacing it are online platforms, online protocols, online introductions. And so why don't we start with a question, maybe Joe, for you, since you've developed an app. What was the impetus for creating it, and what are you seeing in the trends for your users?
Yeah, I think you touched on so many things, and it's a great segue into like why I created this. My parents actually met at a bar, and I think that's you kind of know what your parents went through, and that's kind of your first impression of love. And I'm 34, so dating apps didn't really exist when I was in my early 20s, and the way I met people was at a bar, and it was exciting and it was nerve-wracking. You got rejected, you know, had some good connections. And then I saw this transition into this online world. And I think it's more than just dating apps. It's Instagram, it's Meta, it's all these things that have an instant gratification kind of pulse. And I think as that trickled over into dating, it kind of really changed for the worse, where they never were present with someone else. And I think your number one attraction to another human being is being present. You feel an emotion, you feel some type of vibe. And we also don't go through like trials and tribulations. When something is difficult nowadays, whether it's through social media or through something that we don't like, we just move on to the next thing. And I think that's so detrimental to dating, because if you want to date the right person, you're going to need to have great communication and great trials and tribulations, because that builds a strong relationship. So the reason why I created it was I saw myself going through this transition and changing the way that I behaved. And I started treating women as more of a game through social media, through these apps, which was terrible. And I thought, okay, I'm not valuing them as a person. I'm not present with them, and I'm not allowing them the space to kind of have their flaws. It was just very instant gratification. And I thought, okay, there needs to be some shift in this market. And then that's where the idea came of as like a hybrid of, we're going to use technology, it's here to stay, but how do we get people to meet at a bar and to be more physically present with each other?
Yeah, I think that's very insightful, right? Because when you think about online presence, the vast majority of people who are online are putting forward their best foot, right? They're putting out there into the world the ideal self maybe that they wish the world to see them as, but not what life is actually like. And so what comes up from, and maybe Jeannie, you could talk a little bit about this, from what you see on your cohort of people that you work with. What comes up as the biggest challenge when people start to interact, maybe online and then meet in person?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say
So I've talked to a lot of Gen Z daters, and one of the top challenges that I see is probably transparency and communication. I think when it comes to online dating, there's a lot of gray area, especially with Gen Z. You know, there's situationships, there's hookup culture, and from the get-go, I think people have a hard time being transparent about, hey, this is what I want. What are you looking for? So I think a lot of Gen Z daters are frustrated in this. I want to date, I want to find someone, but I don't know what this person's thinking. I don't know what they want. And at the same time, they're kind of afraid and are anxious to ask because they don't want that to kind of ruin their chance of being with that person. I would say a second fear that they have, a second challenge that they have is fear of rejection. I think that with COVID, a lot of Gen Zers are comfortable kind of sitting back, sitting behind their screens in that way, but they're still almost afraid to 100% put themselves out there and be transparent with what they want out of a big fear of being rejected. So we see that a lot in Gen Z daters, and one of the challenges that they face both on screen and especially even more in person when they try to go out there and date in person, they struggle with that because of that rejection aspect.
Even in my generation, I've noticed, I just started dating recently, that the gentleman or the people, if you don't call them right away or you say, I can't come out this, they're done. They're done. They take it as a rejection. They are so fearful. It's almost intense and desperate. And I can almost smell the desperation through computer software, which is impossible. But it's like they're worried. And then they keep showing pictures from 30 years ago. And then if you meet them, they go, oh, you really look like that. I'm like, well, what else would I look like? I mean, what's going on out here? And then, and then it's like, and then some are so desperate. Like, I feel like I'm on a job interview. And so I don't know if it's that different. That's what I'm finding so interesting about your conversation,
Right.
because the communication is terrible, the transparency is terrible, and we're all afraid. And I think that's an ageless, unless you learn to be neutral and go with the flow, that's a whole counseling issue that we
I
try.
love that too, April, because I think one thing that we have a podcast and we talk about a lot of different dating things with different people. And the thing that we stress the most is you need to be good by yourself and you need to be like somewhat whole to attract the right person instead of being desperate. And I think, yeah, desperate is such a key word now. And I think with social media, we all want to be dating the hottest person with the most money. And we have to show what we have on social media instead of just being happy with who we are and then attracting the right person for the right reason.
And it's interesting, and I don't know, for Gen Z, which I'm loving this conversation, is that the men will jump in bed with you long before they'll give you their net worth.
Yeah, I mean,
Wait. Whoa.
Joe, is
You
that
know,
is that one of the questions on your app? I mean, can network be above?
no, it isn't. But I notice when I go out with someone, some people will say, "Well, I do this," or when are we going to do it? How many dates is you normally? And I'm like, I haven't been on a date for 24 years. I mean,
So April,
I'm just like putting my little toes out there. But the conversations go from being intimidating to me, at least, and then if you don't answer the
yeah,
right question, it's shut down. They're gone. They've disappeared, which is fine. I mean, I'd rather them disappear, and that's the healthy thing to do. But I think everybody's shorting themselves of an opportunity to meet people that could be somebody special and have fun with. What's wrong with having fun? I met all my men at bars dancing. I mean, it was a blast. And then also I fall in love with auditory. I'm an auditory person. And so if I can't hear you and if you say, hey babe, you look beautiful, I'm like, oh.
yeah, I love that. I agree with that in that I like to tell people who are on dating apps, like, it's okay to FaceTime or voice note them to kind of get a vibe check of who they are, because you're not going to get a full picture just from the app. Like, I think that in-person energy is so much of it that even if they're the most attractive person on the app, it doesn't mean that that's your person or that you're going to vibe with that
No, I
person.
fall in
So
love with energies. I think frequencies fall. I mean, I'm kind of metaphysical, and I'm a therapist. I work in a community center a lot, and I do a lot of facilitating groups. And I tell people, you are an energy, but if you bring that victim mentality in there, it is, people don't even know they're picking it up, and they are picking it up, and they don't know why they don't like somebody. And you really have to be awake in yourself and know what you're sending as well. But likes attract like. There's an attraction there. The law of attraction has some valid points. And, I stress that a lot in my therapy. What are you manifesting?
Can we dive a little bit into the concept, because all three of you so far have mentioned instant gratification in some way, right? That there isn't a lot of patience for people to get into the an actual conversation, meet in person, and spend the time to get to know another person before making a call it a snap judgment. Jessica, are you seeing any of this in your practice? And what are some of the themes that are coming out of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I have, some Gen Z and millennial women out there dating and experiencing very similar commonalities of, they're all in the city and there's lots of options. And it seems to be people don't want to settle down or commit. I think people are always looking for the better option, and I think, Joe, you touched on something that is, so apparent, that people don't stick around for flaws. They're so quick to write people off. Even, the women in my practice, it's like, oh, if they do that, no, I'm not interested, and how can you get past those things? Because everybody has flaws, Usually I kind of encourage to identify what are your top 5 characteristics that you want to see in your partner and top 5 deal breakers, and kind of stick with that, so you're not limiting your pool to, a very specific set that might not even be online. So yeah, instant gratification is definitely something that comes up on both sides of the gender.
Yeah, thank you.
And a lot of clients, they don't even know themselves. When I ask them, who are you? They don't know. What do you want? I don't know. Then, of course, I'm sure Jessica would agree, we start with what you don't want. And then that kind of makes it easy. But there's just, it made me almost have anxiety. And I rarely never have anxiety. Like it was like, I'm like, I just want to be with my dog right now. I'm like, I can't do this.
But Jessica, you hit on a great point too. And one thing I like to tell people is, okay, you don't want to date this person because of X, Y, and Z. What if they told that to you? How would you feel? And it really puts them on the spot, because they either get a really big sense of self-awareness, or they see how ridiculous that statement is, because we all have flaws. And if my wife, was like, I don't want to be with you because of this, I would say, oh, wow, that's crazy, because that's who I am as a person, and you're not allowing me to just be me. So I think a lot of checklists and a lot of deal breakers, they're deal breakers on paper that don't mean anything in the grand scheme of life. And I think if your morals and values align with somebody, that's like a great baseline. And of course, attraction is really important. So when we get into these things of like how much money you make, or, oh, if you eat your food this way, that's a deal breaker for me. It's like, okay, well, then you're going to have a tough time really with your narrow playing field,
That's right. And also, one of the things I encourage and I find people struggle with, I think you mentioned it before, regarding being honest about what you're looking for. I spoke to some people who have had success with online dating and they're married, and I asked them what made their partner different in the dating world. And it was the reciprocal effort, both sides, and also being honest about their intentions. And when my clients are like, yeah, but what if it scares them away? And I was like, well, think about it this way. If it scares them away, is that the type of person that you would want to be with anyway? I mean, we're not talking like, let's jump in a relationship the first date. It's that I'm, looking for a partner or companion, not casual. And it gives that other person the option to, well, I'm only looking for casual, so I'm gonna keep it moving, or I'm also looking for a partner to date. And if you're scaring off someone just by simply asking, what are you looking for, then maybe that's not someone who wants to commit anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So true.
And it sounds like some of the criteria that we're talking about here is a difference between intrinsic values and who people are versus, some more superficial ones like, the type of job you have or how much money you have, which are two different things completely, right? So what if we reverse it and we talk about, we talked just now about the people or the values that people don't want to be around and opting them out of a relationship. But I imagine, especially in the conversations that all of you have had with people, there are the people who have entered into relationships because they said, you know what, that thing about somebody, right? How they chew or they breathe too heavy or whatever it is it doesn't get in the way of how I feel for that person. But maybe over time it does, right? Maybe over time it starts to manifest into something else. Is that something that you see, and where do you advise people on moving forward with relationships where they might enter into something and then not necessarily know what it's going to manifest into in the future?
I mean, I think I always tell people a first date should be fun and you should be excited to meet somebody new. And I think post a first date, there should be 3 simple criteria if you want to keep pursuing this. Are you attracted to them? Did you have a great time with them? And do kind of your morals and values align? If those 3 things are hit, you should definitely pursue a second date without the expectation of the checklist or they don't want to get married. It's like you should never, my opinion is you should never be like, hey, do you want to have kids and get married on a first date? I feel like it's not, that's great that you're bringing that up, but you're going to catch somebody so off guard for a first date that they're not going to have the probably right response. And you might overthink that and be like, oh, when I said marriage, his eyes glazed. And it's like, well, he probably just didn't know how to respond. Not that he didn't want to get married or did want to get married. And I think first dates should just be really fun, really stress-free, and just see if you have a good time and you're attracted to the person.
That's great advice. Do you see any differences in that perspective, Jeannie or April?
Yeah. I think to piggyback off of what Jessica and Joe were saying, kind of in Gen Z terms, they're obsessed with this ick. And if I get the ick, then I'm done. And that's typically something that's very minor in maybe it's something that can be changed, like a mannerism or just something that they wear. So I think that they're quick to write off people when it comes to like, I got the ick, I'm done. When it was something so minor that can be overlooked, I think. And to also piggyback off what Joe said, I think that dating should be framed as fun rather than, a chore or a job. I think that I always say, even if it's a failed date, at least you A, learn something about yourself, B, maybe the other person taught you something new, or C, you tried a new restaurant, you tried a new activity, and you put yourself out there instead of staying at home and doing nothing. So I think that there's a way to get something out of a date, even if it fails, because there's really no failed dates. So
that's a great perspective. April, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I when I look for somebody, my ears are always perking to their history. If they've had 3 wives, if they cheated, if they have a gambling problem, if they're too aggressive, too touchy, too much, too soon, that will scare most women. Or at least I can only speak for myself. But my number one question that I ask everybody is, can you tell me a little bit about your relationship with your mom?
I had a feeling that you were going to say that one.
And you know what? Do you have any wounded areas there? Has anything hurt you? And then I'll ask it about that. And did you heal from that? Because if not, that's the relationship they're going to put on me. Because relationships, I think we're all like children masquerading around as adults, and we're mirroring unhealed issues. And I'm like, and I'm not even so concerned that they have an answer, is that they understand what I'm saying. And they go, well, that's really interesting. Yeah, I am angry with my mom. Well, then I know either we're going to work on it together. I'm not expecting perfection, or because it's honesty. And I really love that. And that's what relationships are. Or if they're lying about it. Well, I don't really know my dad. I have no feelings about my dad. I have nothing to say about my dad. I'm fine with it. A little too much again. And I'm thinking he's not even emotionally intelligent. So I look for emotional intelligence. I can work with a burp, a cough, a this, a big dog, or whatever. That's little, your football game. I don't care. I just care about the heart stuff. So ask them, tell them, you know what? Tell me more about that. Wow. I mean, that's really, and I know my unhealed issues, and I still am always peeling it back. As soon as you think you have your act together, something hits you, the universe goes, whoa, here we go again. Here we go again. So I'm always learning, and that's what happened to me on The Bachelor. I came away with that, learning more about myself than anybody else. And I think every date should be like that. Even if you decide that is a breaker. But I don't know a lot of people. I think Gen Z are more emotional intelligent than baked cookies who will break if you try to predate that kind of thing.
That's a hot take. I love that.
Well, so there's an interesting analogy or comparison between being on the Golden Bachelor and I think Gen Z, which is both groups have very public interactions, right? Gen Z posts everything or a lot, right? Maybe sometimes a little bit too much, and Golden Bachelor is broadcast, on TV. And so, what are the pressures that go along with a very public relationship?
You become very fake. It becomes very unreal. It's a show. It's a show. And then our life becomes a show. And then I think people like The Bachelor, which I never really was a fan of it myself, to be honest. I just got reeled into it because my significant other died and people kept sending me applications. In fact, when I went on, people were like, why are you doing this? I'm like, I don't know. I never really saw it. So this will be interesting. I'm walking through the store. But I think people want to believe in true love. I think people like to see people get hurt so they don't feel alone. Gee, this happened. Look how pretty this girl's, and she got sent home, and this and that. But it is unrealistic. It is a fantasy. And does love come out of that show? Yeah, there are couples that are married, and God bless them. But it's an alternative universe.
There is a study that says the couples who promote themselves the least on social media are actually the happiest. And I think there is a lot of validity to that because if you're living.
Well, you know why? They found that they have fun doing it. If I could have someone to do dance stuff with, I would be in love with him because I love that stuff. But it's hard to find that. So that's the chemistry you're talking about. And it just so happens to be that their venue is social media.
Yeah. And I think,
but it could be.
Yeah. And I think that if you're actually being present with the person that you quote unquote love and you're actually experiencing life, that supersedes everything. And for a lot of people, social media supersedes it. So it's like, hey, we're going to go to the movies tonight and have a date. And some people are like, okay, we're just going to focus on the movie and each other, which is amazing. Some other people are like, okay, I can't wait to take the perfect picture of this movie to put it on Instagram to show how amazing my relationship is, which is, in my opinion, not the healthiest approach.
Right. Yeah. And so people, but at least they're together doing something that they're both invested in. And I think the investment in love and the relationship, and does it happen in social media? Yeah. But as long as you're having fun together and you're in each other's vibe, it could be fishing, it could be bowling. It could,
and I've seen
have to be, but I am caught in social media too. It's a lot of work. It's not easy.
It is. So I've seen the same study about couples who post and their success rates. But I'm curious, maybe Jeannie, on the Gen Z side of things, there's so much analysis that people either intentionally or unintentionally do trying to understand who are people posting about, who is liking each other's posts, who's following the other person, how long has it been since the last post about the person was that, right? Like people try to deduce who's in relationships just based off of their online profile. And how does that play into the dating scene today? And then separately but related, what happens to the mental health effectively of the people who are watching that?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think, as I say, for the younger Gen Z daters, like more college age, social media is another form of dating. People people consider liking someone's Instagram picture a form of flirting. Like, oh, he likes me because he likes my Instagram picture. People slide into DMs, people message people. And there are some couples that do form through TikTok. Let's say if there are two people active on social media, they're interested in each other. I've seen couples kind of form that way. So it does play a hand in the dating lives of Gen Z. But I would say on the flip side, with celebrity couples and pop culture, there is this unrealistic portrayal of relationships, and people kind of strive for that, and that's not reality. So it's this, why am I not able to achieve that level of success when that's just a snapshot, a moment in someone's relationship? It's not the relationship. So I do think there's a lot of comparison that does eventually impact the mental health, because you're kind of just on your screen thinking, why don't I have this relationship? When in reality, that relationship is not, the full picture is not there on the social media app. So,
and once again, you can always look at Jennifer Lopez, and that's trauma bonding. I mean, I'm sorry I had to go there. Oh,
well, I think that I think what you're touching, I don't know, trauma bonding. I've never heard that, but so that's new to me. But what I think about is there's just very public, getting with people and separations, and how does that ultimately inform how other people are entering the dating scene, right? Because if they see so much transition.
Yeah, like you're saying, I do think there's a pressure to, should I launch my relationship? Should I post that I'm with someone? Like the soft launching trend we see Gen Z do, when it's it should be for yourself. It shouldn't be to prove or validate your relationship for anyone else. You should just post for yourself. And I think there's a lot of pressure in that, kind of proving to others that you're in a XYZ successful relationship, when that's not the point. You really should be in it for yourself, not to prove to anyone anything. So.
Right. And then, of course, if it doesn't work out, it's that obligation that people feel that they need to go online and announce it to the world, right? To a relatively large group of strangers.
I think when it comes to celebrities, they kind of feel this obligation to, I owe the people following me an explanation, or kind of they're following me for my relationship. Now I have to let them in on what's happened, because that's why they're kind of invested in my life.
And so what do you see with non-celebrities, right? People who have their friend circles, and that's largely who they're linked to on social media. Do they do this?
I would say people more post, like they'll do a soft launch, they'll post who they're with. I would say they typically, if they want to kind of show without showing that they broke up with someone, they'll post a picture of them on vacation or solo, or kind of looking good, like a glow up photo, to kind of hint at, I'm single again. I wouldn't say they provide like an analysis or explanation to, I just broke up with this person, but they'll kind of subtly hint at, hey, I'm single now.
Got it. Well, this is great. So what excites you all most about the world of dating that we're in right now?
That's a great question. I think what excites me is people, I think, are learning from the mistakes. I actually think that my generation, millennials, had the worst dating experience, and we kind of introduced dating apps and kind of made it crazy. And I think Gen Z is kind of learning from our mistakes. And at least I see everything come full circle, where weirdly enough, Gen Z is trying to be more focused on relationships and like sober dating, which is a new thing that I never really experienced. And I'm seeing signs of glimmers of hope, which is great. Because I think millennials, we were just crazy with online dating. We got introduced to Facebook and Instagram pretty quickly. And I feel like Gen Z is learning from our mistakes.
Yeah. And then just to add one other aspect to it, right? There was a period of time where the world was disconnected from each other physically for a while, right? And so what is the impact that has had on either the development of people learning how to communicate and interact in person, or the propelling of an online environment and the comfort that people have being behind a screen chatting?
Yeah, and I would like to even ask Jeannie, I see, so obviously there's an issue with the bigger dating apps. Tinder, Bumble, and Hinge are starting to decline, and people are kind of gravitating towards newer apps. And I think they're doubling down, which is not good, and to more of an AI focus and trying to be more of like a technology company. And I think that that's really hurting people in general, because I just don't see a world where human beings are going to rely on AI to connect and, you know,
Yeah.
continue the world with human beings, because it just doesn't logically make sense to me. And I feel like all these companies are just being so focused on AI, and it's kind of ruining us socially.
Can I just dive in before you answer, Jeannie? When you talk about AI, are you talking about the algorithm
Not
to
even the
match
algorithm,
people?
Michael. I think that, and I think Jeannie could speak to this more than I can, because, I'm not even on the apps. I just obviously am building my own. But there's chat functions where the app talks for you, and it like does everything for you, which to me is crazy, because when you do meet somebody in person, which I think is the goal, right? Like I don't think we'll be able to repopulate the world digitally, so you're gonna have to meet somebody. It's not going to be you at all. Like, those aren't the words you said. That's not the way you thought. And it just scares me that they're just having AI bots talk to the other person for you.
Like suggested responses
Yeah.
or
I
yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's a fine line where dating apps, like you said, are trying to keep up with this evolving technology. We need to implement AI. We need to figure this out, but they need to go back to kind of the core of, we need to do this ethically. How can we use AI in a way that people are still themselves and it's not someone else speaking for them, and they're allowed to be in control of their personas online. I agree with you. I think that that's something that is a concern in the future of dating. I think there's positive ways to use it. Like, matchmaking is a new trend where there's ways that people are getting matched through AI, but they're creating their own profile and crafting themselves online. And potentially there's an AI that uses it to match them with someone else. So that's kind of a delicate thing to tread, I think, when it comes to AI. But I also wanted to answer Michael's second half of the question. What am I excited about for the future of dating? Kind of like you were saying, Joe, I think there's a pendulum when it comes to dating, and I'm seeing like a resurgence of in-person events. I think that Gen Z is craving this authentic in-person kind of like old-fashioned love connection. And I'm seeing kind of in this post-grad 22 to 26 demographic, there's run clubs, there's pickleball events, and there's more of this craving for in-person. So I think that there's a way to kind of balance this digital online way to meet with, hey, let's eventually bring this to in real life.
Yeah, it's great. And I've seen some of those run clubs also. I don't know why that's the part of TikTok that I'm on, but maybe because I was a runner, but it definitely seems to show that people are gathering in person, and there's this effort to have, strangers get together and just kind of, declare themselves in creative ways, right? I think I've seen things where it's like, they wear a blue band if you're single, you wear a different color band if you're not,
We
and
do
then
that.
people know who to.
We have
You do that?
So we have
Big-
pickleball events, and you either come with a friend band or you come with a single band.
That's great.
Yeah.
And how effective are you seeing it?
Oh, super effective. I think part of our use case was, like Jeannie said, we're seeing such an uptick in social clubs, whether it is a run club or just like members clubs in general, just where people are part of a community. And I think community is the new key word for brands, because it's intimidating to like be on your own and use dating apps, no matter if you're actually using them for good or bad. But when you're part of a community and there's like more room for error, where you're just like, I'm here to play pickleball and just meet some friends or maybe meet a partner, it makes it more fun, and it makes it more expansive.
Relaxing.
Yeah.
It's more relaxing. It's not so much pressurizing, right?
Yeah.
And you already have, in theory, something in common, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's a good way to start to break the ice. What do you were mentioning AI before? There have been some articles out there about people getting into chat relationships with an AI bot. Have you seen that in any of your interactions and through your companies? And separate than the dating sites using AI, but people utilizing AI relationships.
Yeah, I've seen it, like, actually on actual commercials, not even on social media, like actually on TV. And there was a movie years ago with Joaquin Phoenix where I think it was called Her. And
Fell in love.
it's crazy that it's actually a thing. I I get worried that people are actually that lonely that they're reverting to some AI voice making them feel whole, because you're just creating more isolation. And if everybody in this world gets more isolated, I think that's very scary, to be honest.
Yeah. Does that come through, Jessica or April, in any of the counseling that you do? People who have entered into those relationships, are there any underlying trends that are, maybe something that the industry and as a whole can say, we can address this and get you in touch with somebody
I
personally?
can only speak for statistics that I've been following. Mental health is in a crisis. The suicide rates, they're on social media more. They're lonely. They're despondent. They haven't had the skills because of COVID. Economically, they don't have the funds, a lot of these people, to even get counseling or um, get out in the world and get dressed up and go to a club. I don't even think there are any clubs very much. I mean, I'm moving to New York, by the way, so I'm going to find out. I'm going to find you, Joe. And I'm going to shake this
You
place
just have
up.
to track down the pickleball courts.
Oh God, I'm. You saw me almost break my leg on that pickleball court. I just really think that people are so lonely. It breaks my heart. It really breaks my heart. And I think desperation has, like I said, has a terrible cologne. I think people really need to do their own healing work. If I was, I tell people, slow down. There are a lot of people out there. Get it together. You cannot bring together what you don't have. If you don't love yourself, if you're not happy, like if you don't want to be alone with you, why do I want to be alone with you? Whoa,
Great
whoa, whoa,
perspective.
whoa. Well, let's stop it.
And I think the science is
Yeah,
coming back too. Like, the biology
yeah,
of human beings is that we're pack animals. Like, we do better together. It's just biologically a fact. I'm not a scientist, but that's what I see and
no,
read.
we're
Well,
tribal.
Yeah.
it's
We're
one of
And
tribes.
the fact that
yeah, it's
we're
one of
We
getting,
are,
yeah,
Maslow's,
the fact that,
hierarchy of needs,
yeah,
right?
and the fact that we're getting so isolated, I think biologically that's why we're getting depressed, is because our brains and bodies don't know how to be isolated. And yeah.
people who are grandparents that raise their kids live longer, people that have pets live longer, people that go attend some kind of service every week live longer. I'm moving to New York to be with my family. I know that there's a lack there of that. And so, luckily, I can do that. However, it is heartbreaking. So thank you, everybody. Jessica, thank you. I know you're overwhelmed. So I know some days you probably come home and you're like, and um, I'm like, oh my God, please. But they need us. They need good people like all of you are out there, uh,
So,
especially you, Jeannie, and Joe. I'm going to be working with you, so forget it. You're stuck with me now.
so I mean, that's a good segue into how do you promote self-care while maintaining healthy boundaries in the dating environment?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, another thing that's really positive that I'm seeing with self-care is that men are becoming more vulnerable, and I think it's becoming a great sign of confidence. Like back in the day, men weren't supposed to show emotion, and you had very traditional relationships mostly where, a man is strong, he doesn't speak about his emotions, but I think that's unhealthy. In today's world, I think men are feeling more confident in, hey, here's how I actually feel as a human being. Doesn't mean I'm a weak man. It just means I'm confident enough to share my vulnerabilities. And I think that is a really good self-care thing that women are allowing and giving us the space to be like, you know what, that's really cool and attractive that you're telling me how you actually feel so that I can relate to you. And like April said earlier, we can work on it together. And I think, obviously other traditional things like eating healthy and, working out, like those things make you feel so good, which then makes you more attractive because you just feel good internally. But I really like the fact that men are getting more emotionally intelligent. I see that a little bit.
Yeah, as far as promoting self-care, I have not had any clients who have developed any AI type relationships. I do have some though that may have a lot of more of their connections online with other people. However, the ones that are still dating and they're single, encouraging taking breaks at times, or, trying different things. A lot of the people are very unhappy with dating apps. So, let's explore speed dating, or, meetups, or, what are some of your hobbies? And when you think of the ideal, person that has similar interests or values, where would they be? What would they be doing? And go do that, and more in person stuff. And then of course, self-care is looking internally in yourself. What's coming up for you in dating. What is your attachment style? Spending some work on that. And then also, refocusing on, your own interests and hobbies, and maybe putting a pause on dating while you do that.
That's great advice. Jeannie, what is Gen Z saying about self-care?
Yeah, I mean, I think that obviously Gen Z is online all the time. So I think that they struggle with, separating social media versus reality. And it's important to remember when you're scrolling, like, to take a step away from that lens and realize that what you're seeing is just kind of the snapshot in time. And I do think with what we were just saying, sadly, Gen Z is like a very lonely generation and craves social connection and craves to be with people. And I think, there's this kind of counteractive thought where it's like they crave this at the same time they're sitting kind of behind their screens scrolling while craving this and not kind of putting themselves out there. So I think it's important to find this balance with, realizing that social media is not going to be 100% real all the time, and also being okay with starting to put yourself out there. And it's okay if you're rejected, and that happens to everyone. That's just dating, and that's okay. So I also think there's something great in being single. And I think that, being single, you can learn so much about yourself. It's kind of like empowering almost, I say, like solo mentality. Like it's great to go to a restaurant solo and grab yourself a meal and kind of embrace that part of your life, because there's always time to date also. So
that's great advice. April, anything that you'd like to add?
Yeah, also, as you get older, I think the Gen Z, and I wish I was back then, they're not as established with as much history. You notice on The Golden Bachelor that Gary lived in Indiana, and there are people living in Florida. They have families, they have careers, they have retirement. So as you get older, there's a little bit more steadfastness in your lifestyle, which makes it a little bit more difficult. And that's okay too. But just realize who you are and what that is. If that's going to be a no-go, that's fine. Yeah, give people a chance. I just go out and have fun.
And so what would be the preferred way that you would recommend people meet people?
Myself? You mean me?
Everybody, yeah.
Oh, gee, I don't know. I'm online right now. So, and then I'm going to go to Joe's and meet people up front. I thought most people fall in love by scent. So
Okay.
I need to smell somebody, that's research based. It's not me. I'm not making this up. Scent is very important. And even your scent changes. So if you have a long distance relationship and you don't see them, say they're overseas or something, and they come back and their scent changes, so I gotta smell you, touch you, be you, look at you, feel you, see if we have that. Everything I'm saying here will go to shit when I fall in love, because I will be like gaga, and I will forget. I will need to call you all for counseling.
It'll be somebody online that you've never met in person and been able to smell.
And I'll just be like, oh, I love him.
I think that you should actually have a plan. I think, kind of like homework, just say, this month I'm going to go to this many events. I'm going to go on this many dates, and kind of set that expectation for yourself, because it forces you. Like we could all say, oh yeah, go meet more people. But if you just follow the same patterns, you're just going to probably let it go by the wayside. I think if you said, I'm going to go to 2 events, I'm going to go on 2 dates this month, that's great. And then if that first event or that first date is so amazing that you actually meet somebody, then you kind of solve your problem right away. And I think it's just getting out of your comfort zone. Like everybody said on this call, it's okay to be rejected. It's so okay. It's nothing wrong with you. It's just, maybe it's not the right time to meet somebody. Maybe you're going to learn something from this interaction, but don't be afraid to get rejected. Everybody gets rejected. And we talked about Jennifer Lopez, like Ben Affleck. He's one of the most famous people in the world. He got rejected. Like, it doesn't matter who you are. You can get rejected. It's totally fine.
And also, I tell everybody, haven't you been through this before? And you're still standing here. Haven't you been hurt? Haven't you been rejected? Haven't you had feelings of loss? Haven't you wanted to get out of bed for days? But you're back, and you will get
And I
back
think
from this.
with
But
that,
things,
April, I think that's like the world's missing conflict resolution. Like, conflict resolution makes you stronger, makes you more of who you should be in life. And in today's world, like, if you're 22 and you don't have your dream job and you don't have your dream partner and you don't make enough money, then you think you're a failure. But it's like, throughout history, it's such a building block of achievements where it's like, you struggle with your career in your 20s, you struggle with your dating life in your 20s. That's how it is, and everything's not going to just happen. Like, you have to find conflict resolution.
and I tell like you, Joe, I hope I meet you in a year or so and you're a completely different person from all the stuff that went wrong, all the little stuff. And then we learn more from our mistakes. I mean, the brain somehow neurologically remembers that fight or flight. We remember danger. We remember hurt more. It's an instinct. But so when you have a failure, it's like it kind of manifests more and you go there more. But it was great. You learn instead of looking down, like, what's in this for me to learn? What is this mirroring about myself that I need work on so I don't bring that baggage forward? I'm going to let that go. Thank God. Let it go. And then go on your way and get a good pair of high heels.
And I think what you're talking about is something that we've definitely seen from the Gen X generation and older. I think somewhere maybe between millennials and Gen Z, what we're seeing in the statistics is that those interactions that don't go their way lead to very significant concerns that that sometimes are left unmet, but are the number one cause for outreach for mental health support. And so I guess the question is, what would be, and this is why I really love the conversation around self-care and understanding, what is the kind of dating scene like out there, and the advice of, everybody's going to get rejected. It's okay. It's kind of how you learn, and it's how you move forward.
And
but
you didn't really want him anyhow. I mean, you probably didn't want her anyhow. If it wasn't going to work, really, do you want him? Is this your ego? Are we functioning from ego, or are we functioning from our soulful self? And actually, I really do believe if it's meant to be, it is going to be when it's time for you. So what you need to do is do your work. Do your work. And you got a lot of work to do, because we all do.
And that work, right, which you said earlier, I just want to bring it back now, is to understand who you are, right? And what's important to you, and what is also important for you not to be around. And then if you know that, you have the opportunity to then find your happiness, right?
And Michael, with that too. Go ahead. Sorry. I was going to say, what you're around makes a big difference. If you're around people, let's just assume you're a single woman and you're looking for a partner who's a man, and all your friends like men suck. And then that's the verbiage that you're hearing. So every time you go on a date, you just think, oh, men suck. That's not a good way to approach, your dating life. If you're a man and all your friends like, oh, all these women are crazy, it's like, oh, so this is kind of the verbiage that I'm seeing. That's so unhealthy. And I think you should surround yourself with people who actually want you to be happy. And I think going out with your friends, it's just like the little tool that somebody taught me when I was younger. When you go out with your friends and you don't scan the room like looking for a partner, and you're just present and having a good time, you seem so attractive that everybody's going to flock to you. Yeah. So whether you're a woman or man, whatever you are, if you're just out there being present with the people that you actually like, you're going to be the most attractive person in the room just because you're being present. And I think that's a tool that people should learn.
Well, and that's why the guys or the women that you don't like always love you, because you are nonchalant, you have demure about you, and it's attractive. I'm telling you, just be you and stand in your power. And I tell them, you have so much power, you don't even know what you can do inside of yourself.
And you can't
I'm like their fairy
feel that,
godmother.
right?
I like the magic happens inside and then boom.
And you can't feel that power, and you can't see it in action if you're just behind the screen all the time, right?
Yeah. And,
Power
and
isn't.
also it's your brain. Like I said, if your mother told you all men are no good or they're only worth money or you'll never make anything of yourself or you're just like your father, you're a loser. That's when you have to go back in, look at yourself, get the mirror out and do the work. And we have to say, is that even real? Mom's dead or dad loves me now or we've worked this out. Why am I still hearing those tapes?
Yeah.
And Gen X doesn't have anyone to talk to like that. A lot of times they're just on social media looking at Ben Affleck.
Yeah, and
I
this
won't
also
even mention P Diddy, but
it also touches on the aspect of the fact that there's a lot of conversation going on right now, whatever your goals are in life, whether it's relationship goals, professional goals, personal goals, to not share them with friends and family members because too often they're put down, right? Somebody puts an aspirational idea out there, and instead of saying, hey, here's so and so, I really like them, right? And then getting your family to say, them? Really? You like that person? Right? Instead, it's like, go get a relationship with the person, put yourself out there, and then if it works out, bring them over and say, hey, I really like you to meet my friends, right? This concept of accomplish what you want to accomplish is first, before sharing the idea, sometimes is leading to happier results for people.
Mm-hmm.
who did the line? Is it one of the Beatles? Life is what's happening when you're, setting goals. This is it. This is the life right now, not then. But I do love Gen X. They value experiences more than they do the house, the car, the this, the that. I mean, I know they're just ready to take off. Whereas people in my generation, we wanted to work 50 years at one place and get a gold watch
I do
Yeah.
think that it has changed.
for nothing.
So,
Some of the women
I
that
love
I
you
work with
guys.
that are single that would like a relationship or long-term commitment are professionals. They prioritize their career first. Some of them are, if it happens, it happens. I'm actually okay if I'm single the rest of my life. I'm fulfilled in other ways. I do still have a sense of community with, my friends and my family that if I meet someone along the way, great. If not, I'm okay too. Which I think is definitely a lot different.
And
so
that's how most of the women on The Bachelor were. They were already been through so much pain and suffering, losses, this, that they had found a degree of comfort and peace in creating their own being, their own wholeness, a space for themselves. And they didn't need anyone else to fill the space. They needed someone to stand by the space, but not fill the space.
So let's
They're not
talk a little bit
empty.
about the people that have started to embrace the ghosting culture. Is that healthy or not for the dating environment?
Yeah. I
April
guess I can
ghosted
touch.
us.
Yeah,
April ghosted us.
I would say we do see that a lot, especially on dating apps, on social media, especially, I mean, a lot of Gen Z relationships are formed initially online and there's low stakes and commitment to this person because, on one end, the one person might be very emotionally invested, but the other person might say, hey, I haven't even met you. I'm not really attached to this. I don't feel like I owe you anything. So I do think that's a huge, challenge we see in Gen Z daters and on dating apps. I've also seen it in in-person dating where people kind of don't know how to end things, are afraid to be transparent, are afraid to hurt someone, therefore think that ghosting is a better solution than being honest and saying, hey, I'm not really interested anymore.
Yeah, I have a little bit of
Joe,
a
were you
hot
going to add
take
something?
on this, but it kind of goes with what Jeannie was saying. We're connected with so many people. So for you to kind of, you go on a date with one person or you're talking to them for a little bit, like a week, I think it's too formal to kind of let them down because, it's just so fast and there's so many people we're talking to that it can create a really awkward situation where the other person is just like, yeah, like I didn't really like you anyway. The fact that you kind of let me down is kind of really awkward. So I'm kind of an advocate of the soft ghosting if you've been on 3 dates with somebody, you should never ghost them. Like, you should probably communicate very properly. If you've been on one date and there's no connection, I don't think you owe them anything. If they keep reaching out, you should probably respond. But if it's just one or two texts of like, hey, what's going on? And you just feel more comfortable kind of fading away, that's fine. And I also think there's a lack of emotional intelligence there, especially for men. We don't really know how to articulate in a mature way of, hey, you're not the person for me. I think we immediately jump to the conclusion of drama where we're like, oh, I'm going to let this person down. They're going to key my car, which is not the case. And I think, if men just kind of sat back and said, hey, I'm going to be really mature and let you know you're just not my person, they're probably going to like you even more because you are mature and it's hard to find a mature man. But yeah, I think there's two ways of going about it. And I think it's okay to soft ghost in this fast paced world if something's really not there.
I agree.
So
I'm sorry.
three dates
yeah,
or less.
absolutely
Sorry,
agree. Yeah, I think if you're just talking online and you don't see a connection, or like the one date, maybe it's not necessary, but definitely after a few dates, having that consideration, and it leaves the other person wondering what they did wrong, and that does come up often. And with my clients, like why did they do this? I thought we had a connection. What did I do wrong? And I kind of bring it back and put it back on that other person. If it's an instance where it's a lack of consideration, is that someone that you would have wanted to have a relationship with anyway? If they can't handle this small thing, then how do they handle other big issues and communication?
Yeah. So, and I guess there's a few parts to that, right? One is ghosting may be a trait that extends beyond their dating and their relationship approach to life, right? There's a tremendous amount of ghosting that goes on for professional environments, for people either going through an interview process and accepting jobs and not showing up on day one for because maybe they took another offer, but they're not reaching out in that environment also. So there's a little bit of a cultural change that we're seeing, not only in the dating relationships but also in professional life as well. And so Jessica, you started to touch on what that does to the mental health for the person who got ghosted. What does it also do for the people that are in their circles, right? So, it's a big world and sometimes it's a small world. And so if people are on the dating scene, presumably in the same area, it is possible that, someone who's constantly ghosting can get a reputation for that. How does that impact the marketplace and also the mental health of the people impacted?
I think it, yeah, I don't think I've seen it become where someone's developed a reputation. I think because a lot of the people that I work with are from the city, and there's a lot of, so that, even though the city can be small at certain times, I don't think it's something that has come up in my practice.
Yeah, I think my view on that is similarly. I think in the old days, when you're meeting people through mutual friends, through community groups, you have to more present yourself better and appropriately exit, because there are higher stakes, because I think that the dating pool used to be a little smaller, and now that we have the apps, there's kind of a wider pool and less stakes in that this person probably doesn't know my last name, doesn't know who I am. I'm just going to exit stage left. So I do think with the dating apps, there's a less kind of respectful exiting dating culture than maybe in the old days when you're being set up and you have to be a little more respectful about exiting.
Okay. What do you think are some of Gen Z's biggest challenges to making authentic connections?
Yeah, I mean, I think that inevitably, kind of what we were touching on earlier, just with, this comfort in being behind our screens and using apps, they crave this organic connection, but they don't pursue that route, and they don't approach someone at a restaurant or at a coffee shop. So just like the fear of that's in the in-person connection, I think results in a lack of authenticity in dating, because it's really hard to have that full connection when you're talking behind a screen with someone. That's kind of something I could think about. I could also say, I think kind of what I was touching on before in just this, I think that with social media, there's kind of this snapshot image of before you go on a date with someone, you'll often look their profile up and make a snap judgment and maybe not go on the date because of something you saw when might not be the full picture of someone. So I think that a lot of our decisions in dating are based off of this digital landscape when that's not the full picture. The full picture is going to be when you meet them and see them in person. So I think social media plays a huge part in the decision making in whether or not to pursue X person. When that's unfortunate, because I think that giving that person a chance in person could change things.
April, is that something that's part of the dating scene that you're seeing as well? Is scoping out people's profiles and their online presence?
Yeah, I think we do it a little bit, but not as much. I mean, I think my generation, we just crave one-on-one interaction. I don't think we're as into social media as other people. And the people who are successful at it have very busy lives and they're going about their life. But my Gen Z, it's funny when I do groups, I do a female group every week and a male group. When I ask them I asked them a question. It's funny, they all want it to be about them until I say, well, this is about you. Then they're like, I don't want to talk about me right now. I'm like, come on, you love talking about you. It's all about you. So I think they're shyer and less confident than they appear behind the screen. And I do agree with that. And as I said, I love your generation. They're like my kids. But you guys get a little shy when you're under the gun. So.
I do want to say though, I think, I've been out of the dating game for like 10 years, but when I was in online dating, I did check out social media, and some people don't post much, so you can't really tell a lot. But for those who post a lot, you kind of get an idea though of the sense of person either they're trying to portray themselves to be, or and if that aligns with somebody you want to be around. And I do remember that there was a few people that I was like, like maybe they were like posting really like controversial stuff or like, racist things. I'm like, no, that's not somebody that I would want to be around. So I do think sometimes it can be helpful depending on the level of posting someone does,
I was going to say, to piggyback back off of that really quick, I think it's interesting because in the old days when we're set up with someone, we have no idea what we're getting ourselves into. I think people kind of prep themselves for a date because they can find out information about a person. So they kind of ask questions on a first date that they already know the answers to because they did their background research beforehand.
I also think, though, that those questions are what makes the first 15, 20 minutes of a date organic and stress-free. Is you could ask somebody, like, tell me where you're from, what do you do? And those things don't happen in person anymore. And it does create a lot of awkward moments on our first date. And I also think as human beings, I don't know why, but we have a rejection mindset. So we immediately figure out why we shouldn't meet somebody rather than why we should meet them. So when we do this research, we're going to find something that we don't like and then think, oh, I actually don't want to meet this person, as opposed to being like, actually, I like that they posted this. I'm more excited to meet them. And I think that's why, I know it's different for women, and for men it's a little easier because of safety elements, but you should do the bare minimum you can to feel comfortable, just to go in very fresh with an open mind and make it organic and just talk about organic things.
So you think it's more valuable in some ways to not have scoped out the profile online and go in with a genuine natural curiosity to meet the person for who they are?
Yeah, and I think like as human beings, there's like stages to trust and there's stages to walls being broken down. And they happen over 2, 3, 4 dates where, certain answers to questions break the walls down, and it happens naturally. If you know too much about somebody and you come off the top rope with a really deep question, it's going to create an inorganic, awkward moment that's hard to get back from. And I think that's kind of goes back to the biology of people and trust and organic dating.
I agree. Yeah, I think some of my best dates have been the dates that I've known the least about that person. Maybe I met them out and I didn't have time to do that research, but I do think that, like you said, it kind of provides an inauthentic experience.
So trust is really important, right? And Joe, you've just been really importantly focused on that. I know I grew up with the show Catfish on MTV,
Oh, yeah.
right? How does that play into the online social dating scene?
But I think that trust happens over time. And I think we want, in today's world with instant gratification, we want trust right away. And that's just unfair. Like, why should I just met you guys and I think you're all awesome, but why should I trust you with all my deepest, darkest secrets? That's not fair, because maybe after this call, you could all go on social media and be like, oh my God, Joe Feminella said this. And it's like, oh, wow, I thought we were in a safe space there, but we're not. And I think trust happens over time, and that's just natural, and that's how it should be.
So I'm backing it up just slightly, right? It's to the point that you met somebody online, either through an app or, DMing them through Instagram, or maybe they DM'd you. And then it's like, hey, let's get together. Let's meet in person. And I would say, and I've been out of this for a long time also, 20 something years, right? It's, to me, my frame of reference would be, are they really going to show up? Is this person real? Is somebody messing with me? Right. And I think some of that's informed by the fact that I watched, 10 seasons of Catfish.
Well, I
right?
think
And so,
from what I see, because our app obviously really pushes people to meet in real life. Most catfishing, I think, don't hold me to this, but 90% of catfishing is just done online, and it's not really physical. And I think if you watch those shows like Catfish, it's really hard for those people to actually meet in real life. Like, they're trying to find each other to get catfished, and I
Right.
think it's very, very rare that you're physically going to get catfished. And I think most of catfishing is just digital, where people are trying to figure out if you're being catfished or not.
Right. And that's why, so I agree with you. I'm thinking about it from the standpoint of somebody entering into the dating world and taking that first step to say, you know what, I want to create an online profile, an online dating profile. How
Well,
do you
I
build that
think
first step of trust?
I had a client that, was dating and, recently got out of marriage and started to like kind of dip their feet into the online dating world. And I think there, when you watch the show Catfish, there's a lot of commonalities of, not talking on the phone or no FaceTime. The camera's always broken. Every time they meet up, there's this elaborate excuse. And this specific client, right away, when they, were supposed to talk on the phone and do a FaceTime, all of a sudden the sister died. And it's like, whoa, it's such an elaborate reason that you don't want to question it and be cold hearted. But then you're like, okay, I'll give this person one more shot. Let's meet up on this time. So sorry what happened. And then, of course, when that time came, another excuse. And my client was like, yeah, I'm not. I think they're a catfish, and kind of just let it go. So I think, knowing that you could talk to someone on the phone. Someone's camera's broken is not going to be broken every day, all the time. It's just highly unlikely, if that is a really big concern before you actually meet the person. And FaceTime, camera, Zooms,
That's good advice.
Do you think people think that a lot of people are always lying, or do lie a lot? Because I was going to go on a date, and somebody did die in my family on Thanksgiving, so I couldn't go out. And then they never called me back. And it was like, and of course I let it go. But I could tell they thought I was lying. Do a lot of people lie?
I mean, I'll tell you, one of the things that I'm involved with is I've been a professor for over 10 years. There are some students where it's like, how many grandmothers did you have? Right. And so there's only so many people that you can say, have passed away and you couldn't get your assignment done. And so, I'd like to think that, as humanity, we're
That's
much
so
better than
sad.
that. But I mean, there's definitely people who lie. From the dating side of things, Joe or Jeannie, do you have something that you've heard in the marketplace?
I think lying is a strong word. I feel like when you're single, you're trying to portray the best version of yourself, and you're going to be so biased, and you're going to think about what that other person might think is cool or might think of your profile. So I think it's more of elaborating and exaggerating than lying. And I think it's natural. I think it's really hard for you to be like, here's my dating profile. I snore when I sleep. I, don't like to eat this food. I go to the bathroom really awkwardly. You're going to smell a lot of things. I feel like no one's going to do that. So you're going to present the best things of yourself. You're going to elaborate. You're going to exaggerate. And yeah, I think it's okay if it's not too over the top, you know?
I think it turns me off too much, too much elaboration.
Yeah.
It seems for me, I can sense that right away. Of course, that's our job to dig in for underneath what's really going on. So I think we become detectives. Counselors are detectives in finding that out. So men I go out with are at a disadvantage, but I think it's harder. But
So
yeah,
do
I
you
just
tell
think
them? Do
this,
you tell them that you're
yeah, that
a counsel?
scares them.
Right, because then I would imagine they would feel like they're being analyzed
Yeah.
the entire time you're speaking.
Yeah, or if I say and I told my aunt about you or something, they go, "Oh, it sounds like I'm being vetted." And I said, "Baby, aren't we all being vetted? I mean, come on. I mean, this is the game, you know."
Yeah, we're all being judged every moment, right? The question is whether or not we're comfortable with that and who we
Yeah,
are.
I think that a lot of people, I don't know, Jessica, I'm sure, and then you, Jeannie, with all your background and all of this can be intimidated. And I mean, and you being a professor, I think people have to be strong in themselves and have it together, have their act together, and be happy with who they are, the bad and the
Yeah,
good.
absolutely. I mean, I started dating my husband right when I graduated, so he got to see the therapy now. But my children, I was having this conversation. I have young kids, but I was having this conversation with somebody, and I was saying, I hope that my children will respect my opinion enough, because it wouldn't be if I didn't think this guy or woman was a good fit because of their job or their race or their religion. It would be their background or the behaviors that they're displaying, that it's hard to turn that kind of analysis side off, because that does play a big role in how someone may treat you in a relationship. um,
I'd like to ask a question for Gen Z and Joe and everyone out there. What happened to romance? I
Yeah.
mean, just being turned on by the touch of a hand or a song that comes on and dancing at a jazz club in New York till dawn and not doing anything else. But what happened to that? Like, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. I mean, I- it, I'm intrigued. I haven't dated for 24 years,
I,
so.
I mean,
Yeah.
you go first, Jeannie.
I would say from my experience talking to people, I've asked people, like, do you think chivalry is dead? I think that there's little gestures that people can do that maybe don't cost a lot of money, but that show that you're interested in someone. Send them a song that reminds you of them. Little things that I tell people, but I do think that people have shifted away from those subtle gestures and thinking about you. I think a part of romance is dead, although I'd like to believe in it. I think people crave that and want that, but people aren't putting action into making that happen and come to life.
It doesn't have to be money. Take me to a biker bar. Take me to a biker bar and play the
But I think
jukebox. I mean,
what Jeannie said earlier about like the pendulum swinging, and this might be a
yeah.
hot take and might be controversial, but like there was a time where the pendulum swung so much where it was like if a guy was to hold the door open for you or to pay for the bill, it was like him being too traditional. And it was like, well, I'm a woman, I
Right.
could do what I want to do. And I think I don't agree with most of that. I agree with like, to me, a first date is like valuing for a man to value the time that woman is taking out of her day to get ready to be with you. And you should make it the best experience possible. Doesn't mean that you're not equal. It's just, I'm going to be chivalrous. I think chivalry should be alive. And I think, like everything, it went so far one way where people were like, oh, so you should never pay for the bill for women. You should never hold the door open for women. It's like, well, that's not what we meant. And I think it's now coming back to be normal again, hopefully, where it's like, me holding the door open for you is not a sign of being unequal. It's just, I'm trying to do a little gesture to make you feel happy, you know?
Yeah,
And so
Those
what?
doors
there's
are
a new
heavy too.
there's a new Gen Z term. It's called like micromance. That's what I've been hearing. But it's kind of
Microman.
these little romantic gestures that, like Joe said, like it's a pendulum that I think slowly it's these little gestures that are starting to that we're starting to see again resurge in romance and dating.
And that's a good thing, Jeannie?
I think it's a good thing. I think there needs to be a balance. I don't think we're going to go back to how it used to be 100%. I think that, kind of like Joe was saying, it's a little more, the dynamics between men and women are different in today's society. And I think that there's ways for a woman to show a male, if that's who you're interested in, hey, I like you and I'm thinking about you. It doesn't just have to be one way. I think that it can be both ways.
And I have like a story for you
And so,
too, Michael, that like it really made me happy about kind of the hope for men and women kind of existing together, where I was on a date with my now wife, and I walked on the outside of the street, and she had asked her mom that night, hey, Joe keeps moving me to the inside of the street. It's so weird. And her mom was like, no, he's doing that because if a car comes off the road, it's going to hit him first and not you. And she was like, oh my God, that is the sweetest thing ever. And it was just a small thing of chivalry where it was like, just in case in a crazy world the car comes off the street, I'd rather me get hit than you. And she was like, that's amazing.
It's not a money thing. It's a gesture. It's
Yes.
right. And it says so much, right, about being protective, being aware, being considerate. So I guess my follow-up to that would be, is that something that we should be, like, you have a series on your app that says, these are the things, guys, that you should be doing when you go out on a date, or is that lost now?
Yeah, and I think to Jeannie's point, it's not a cookie cutter approach, right? Like maybe there is a guy and there's a woman who's like, hey, I actually want to pay for everything, and this is how I feel comfortable. And the guy's like, okay, I feel comfortable that way too. And it's like, however you feel comfortable and the way that you date is great. And I think that's healthy as well. Everybody's different. I think we have to just allow them to be who they are.
You be authentic.
How does that come up in a first date scenario now? And I'm asking from the perspective of, the person who's maybe not gone on a date yet, or they haven't gone on a date in a while, and they don't know what the proper etiquette is, and they are stressed, right? There's an anxiety building because it's like, oh, this person said, yes, I'm going to go out with them, but I don't know what to do next. I don't know what the right thing to do is.
I think it's a lot of maturity and communication. And, if I was going on a date with somebody and I held the door open for them and they were like, Joe, I love that you held the door open for me, but going forward, I want to hold the door open for you. And I'd be like, oh, that was such a mature, great way to communicate it, where you felt that what I was doing was like too traditional, and you kind of just reversed it, and you did it in such a playful way that, you know what, moving forward, you can hold the door open for me. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's good advice. I would just go to Target or Walmart where the door's open on that.
There you go. We see that a lot with like paying the bill too.
Well, they do that at Saks Fifth Avenue too. Okay,
oh, there you go.
Don't limit yourself.
But we see that a lot with like paying the bill. It's a very controversial thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, like paying the bill. It's a hot topic, and I've seen all ages of the spectrum prefer if the guy pays, but it's such a gray area hot topic where, listen, if a woman's like, listen, I make a lot of money and I want to pay for this date, who are you to say that she can't,
But is there a protocol where it's like, who invited the other person, right? Who took the initiative to say, I'd love to take you out? And is it that person's responsibility to pay in that situation? Or is it still open-ended and a question mark?
I think I agree that I actually don't agree. I don't know. I feel like it goes back to me being who I am as a person, where no matter if I think the date is going to work or not work, I value the time, so I'm going to pay. But I think the protocol that I prefer is both people should offer. And then one person, preferably in my situation would be me, where it's like, I really, really, really value and respect that you want to split this with me, but it would make me happy to kind of pay for it if you're okay with that. And yeah, I just think the offer is really great. Instead of someone expecting it, I think that's really, I think that's a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Joe said, I'm kind of in that debate, like who should pay on the first date. And kind of on the female side, I like to tell people, and I myself like to put the card down and offer and not show that I expect anything from that person, and I'm here just to have a nice meal and leave. But typically the guy, if they are interested, or even if they're not interested, they'll be like, don't worry, thank you for offering. And kind of that's the way that I've gone about it, and my friends have gone about it. So
that's great. So then we've talked a lot today about, I'd say, the entrance point into dating and into relationships. What do you see as the things that create lasting relationships, right? That happily ever after? for the people that have been successful, what would you recommend people think about?
I would say from the get-go, sometimes if there's not that butterfly feeling, don't take that person off the table. I would say a lot of the successful relationships I've seen, it's been like, yeah, I'm interested. I'll give them another chance, but it hasn't been, this is the love of my life. This is my soulmate. So even if you don't have a reaction to a person that you're on a first date with, this is my soulmate. They don't have to be the one right away. They don't have to be. So I would say keep an open mind. If you're into them and you could see yourself hanging out with them, then hang out with them again, give them another chance. Because typically a lot of people don't have that soulmate gut reaction spark right away.
I agree. I think that that's great advice, because some people, romanticize with, social media or movies and music that you're supposed to be like head over heels and have this butterfly love at first sight. And that's not reality, because even with that, even if you do have that, eventually that does, dissipate, and, a different long-term type of love develops. And I think it's less about, there is a sense of compatibility, but it's also how you grow together, how you communicate, the trust, and those values. And I think you mentioned the conflict resolution, and being aware of how to do that. There is no perfect person at all. And April, you mentioned this before, and I talk a lot about this with my clients, is that it doesn't matter who you're with. That partner is going to show you your wounds. Now, it may be different in different ways, but it's less about them and more about you, and, not allowing that to be the deciding factor of like, oh, well, you know what, I've spent a couple of years with this person and I can't do this anymore. And that, I think, sometimes is what is one of the major issues today, is that people are so quick to, peace out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think for me, a big thing is you need to fight for it if you think it's going to be something that lasts forever. There's always going to be some type of issue or serious moment that happens, whether it's in a relationship or in life. And if you guys aren't fighting for the relationship, then it's probably not a strong one. And it doesn't mean that it could alternate. Maybe one person's fighting more at one point and the other person's fighting more at one point to keep it together. But if you're not willing to fight for your relationship, I don't know if that's the right person, because it takes a lot of effort and a lot of communication and a lot of energy to be with somebody for the rest of your life, which is what I want. But you have to fight for it. It's not easy. It's not easy at all.
Mm-hmm. I came across a TikTok, and this lady asked herself these 3 questions. I don't know if you guys have seen this video or not, but she asked herself these 3 questions when it's to do with a friend or a romantic relationship, because sometimes she has her blinders on and doesn't see things for what it is. And one of the questions is that, if I were to wake up and be this person, would I be okay? Would I be happy with, the choices they make, how they dress, what they do, their values? The second question was, if we were just to be alone, no alcohol, no substances, no, we're not playing a game. We're just literally just being alone with each other. And I'm not talking, I'm not taking up all the space. Am I going to have a good time? And the last one, which I think is very important, especially having, I lost a parent last year experiencing this, is that, are they going to show up for me when one of my parents dies? Because that is going to happen and life is going to be hard. And is this person going to show up? And, I think that one right there hits the nail on the head. Long-term wise, is this someone that's going to be able to show up for me if I was to get cancer, if one of my parents dies, if life gets hard? Are they going to be a partner, or are they going to be another added stressor?
I love that.
Excellent.
I love the silence
Great
one
list.
too. Like, that's one thing I told my wife is I love the fact that we could be in the car for a long car ride for 4 hours and not say a word to each other. And it feels so at home.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, I show that video to my clients sometimes too. So I was like, wow, this is great. I love it.
Great.
Yeah.
That's cool.
April, do you have anything to add?
No, I think that's completely it. And also, give it 3 or 4 dates. I read somewhere that they said give it 7. I think 7 could be a little bit long. Usually, by 3 or 4, and then have that nice conversation. It's not personal, and bow out gracefully. You do have a right for boundaries. You do have a right to say yes or no. And a lot of people who are coming from low self-esteem and low self-worth, I think they play the game too much at first, and everybody has an unspoken contract in a relationship. And if you start a certain way and then a year later you go, no, that's not who I really am, that's not, then you've lied and you've been deceptive again, and you've created a year of playing this game, this masquerade. So, give it time, see if that spark happens, and then, but make sure you will live authentically, and know that you do. As women, I see a lot of women in abused relationships and stuff. They stayed way too long at the party, and they needed to leave, but they were afraid, whether for also, that's what they grew up with. That was their comfort zone. If you're comfortable in a dysfunctional family, and an abusive, God forbid, verbally, spiritually, physically, you stay too long, and you get in too deep, and then you start sharing a house and electric bills and this, and then that's when you go to the counselor and go, now what am I going to do? He's an idiot. And I always say, he probably was that before, but you didn't want to see it.
Yeah.
And she was that before. She just wanted me for my money, or she just wanted me for this. So stay awake, give it a chance. Love is the most important thing in the world. I would do anything for love except sell my soul.
It's all great advice. And certainly if anybody's faced with a challenging situation, they should be reaching out as early as possible to have the right conversations with the right skilled professionals, and be guided for the right way to handle it. So thank you for bringing that up, April. I'd like to thank all of you for your time and the incredible information that you shared. I think there's so much value that people entering the dating scene, in the dating scene, or looking to get back into the dating scene will gain from all of your conversations. And I really thank you for your open, honest answers, and the free-flowing conversation. It was terrific. Do you all want to share some information about where people could find you?
You can go. I also help people I do a lot of Gen Z. I help people figure out their soul contracts, on their karma, what they were born to overcome, their blueprint of their life, what their mission is in life, what their goals are. And you can go to aprilkirkwood.com. I have a new book coming out. It's called The Golden Revamp, about these conversations, spiritually doing the work. I had a woman call me yesterday that said, I still have daddy issues. And I'm 50. I still have daddy issues, and I still like the wrong type of person. Also, Instagram, April Lynn Kirkwood. I'm everywhere. Every Monday, I do Monday Moments. And my Gen Zs, find me.
I'll follow you.
I would love to. I think you're brilliant. I've learned so much. I've learned so much.
I would love to connect with all of you after this. So
I'm so grateful. I am really grateful for all of you. And
Great.
Joe?
Anybody else want to share?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on Psychology Today. I do a private practice. I accept new clients. You can find me, Jessica Wolsifer Asia. But I am also, I do have a therapy type Instagram account. It's MSMS Jessica LCSW. So Miss Jessica LCSW. I post a lot of different educational stuff for coping skills, and people can reach me that way too.
Great.
Yes, you could follow me at Gen Z Mentality on TikTok and at 100 Singles on TikTok. I'm also on Instagram. It's Gen Z Mentality _, and it's called Dating Transparency on Instagram. And yeah, I do a lot of Gen Z content about passion, motivation. Obviously, I have a focus and passion for dating and having conversations about dating transparency within Gen Z, and kind of diving into what's actually going on in our dating lives. So would love for you to check that out.
Thanks. You could find me at First Rounds on Joe on Instagram, and then the app is First Rounds on Me. We also have a really cool podcast on YouTube, First Rounds on Me. And if you want to check our app out, you can go to the App Store and download it, First Rounds on Me. Just a lot of First Rounds on Me stuff.
That's great. That's great. Well, thank you all. And of course, as always, you can find more information about mental health support provided 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, unlimited sessions at officialcounselor.com. on Instagram and TikTok, and Counslr.com. So thank you all, and have a great day.